Good news for bathers in Cape May County. The story at 11 tonight.
Thursday, August 3rd, 1989.
It's a mystery story that has everyone stumped.
There are some inconsistencies.
Why did Thomas Root wind up in the ocean with a bullet wound? His first television interview live.
Don't leave.
The American hostages in Lebanon. Can they be rescued? How do you punish their captors? Secretary of State Baker joins us live as military experts develop a plan.
The social question of the summer. Can men and women be just friends?
He'll want to have sex with you.
They do not.
Do too.
They do not.
Do too.
An electronic prison worn on the body, monitored by computer, for one of the world's richest men.
And Roseanne Barr, who says she's been dissected and critiqued, and she's ready to sound off.
There, I feel better now.
Roseanne joins us live tonight.
From ABC News in New York, this is Primetime Live. Now Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson.
Well, good evening and welcome to the first Primetime Live. Sam and I are delighted to be here at last, and we hope we're going to see a lot of you on Thursday nights because we plan to be traveling the world, exploring the news of the week. We should tell you right at the outset that from week to week this broadcast is going to change as we ask questions, drop in on locations around the world, bring you investigative reports, and introduce you to people we think you're going to want to meet. And because it is live, please bear with us if we're surprised along the way, perhaps as surprised as you.
Diane, going live without a script, you know, is exciting, but it's also a little scary. It's a little bit like Evel Knievel getting on his motorbike, trying to jump the Grand Canyon. If he makes it, it's terrific. If he doesn't make it, it's a long way down.
No parachutes here, no parachutes.
No parachutes, but we have a lot of people to help us. Our own staff, of course. Chris Wallace, Judd Rose, two excellent correspondents who are with us. I can't name all the people, but I want to talk just a moment about some people that you may have noticed around you tonight, our studio audience, because we've invited people in to watch and to participate in Primetime Live. Now, we're going to work with our audience, not as Oprah or Donahue do with theirs. I mean, they are terrific shows, but that's not us. We're going to do it as Ted Koppel does it with Viewpoint or the town meetings. We have invited some people, and other people have just come to see our program, to participate in subjects and issues that they know something about and that they're interested in. For instance, later on, we're going to talk about this awful week for the hostages and what President Bush has had to try to consider in trying to find a policy.
So, shall we get on with it?
Let's do it.
Let's begin. We are going to start tonight with a mystery story. It has captivated all of us since we first saw on the evening news broadcast 3 weeks ago a small Cessna plane floating in the ocean. The pilot of that plane was a man named Tom Root. He is joining us tonight. Will be speaking with us live. But as we said, his tale is a strange puzzle, and we might as well take you back and let you see where it began.
At 6:30 on a Thursday morning, Tom Root took off in his plane, heading out from Washington, D.C. for Rocky Mount, North Carolina. About an hour and a half later, when he was just outside Rocky Mount, he radioed air traffic controllers, telling them he had chest pains and was having trouble breathing. Those were the last words anyone heard from Tom Root. From that point on, his Cessna became a kind of ghost plane, wandering the sky on autopilot toward the Atlantic Ocean. U.S. military pilots raced to investigate.
It appeared to be a body just leaning against the door on his left side. He was on the left pilot seat.
The gentleman was in a position like this. There were people buzzing him, trying to catch his attention.
19 jets and helicopters were dispatched from 13 different military bases, forming a strange aerial caravan as they circled and dipped around the little single-engine plane. Finally, after 4 hours and almost 1,000 miles, the tiny Cessna ran out of gas just off the Bahamas. While the big planes watched, the little plane and pilot began a slow spiral downward into the sea. This first chapter of the mystery ends with a miracle. Root was alive. But with his dramatic rescue, a new mystery was born. Tom Root had a bullet wound.
I asked him if he had any memory of the injury, and he said no. He said it must have happened on impact.
But Dr. Robert Cohen points out that there were powder marks on Root's abdomen, which indicate that the gun was fired at close range. And another question, can a revolver, like the one Root kept in the glove compartment of his plane, be triggered by the impact of a crash? Not according to Smith & Wesson, who make the revolver, and not according to gun dealer Jerry Pricer.
My feeling is that he probably shot himself. For the gun to go off by itself on impact is virtually impossible.
Every day, another twist. Now court papers have revealed that when police searched Root's airplane hangar on a tip last April, they discovered more than 25 guns, including a stun gun and submachine gun. All but one of the guns were properly registered. The police were looking for drugs, which they didn't find, but they did find a 5-gallon can of ether, which can be used to process cocaine. Tom's brother says that the ether was for cleaning oil off the plane.
A mechanic at some airport had said, "Have you tried ether? That's worked pretty well for me."
But if you ask an aviation mechanic of 25 years like Jim Alfin,
I have never heard of anyone ever using ether to clean an airplane.
and what about Root's business as an attorney for Sunrise Management based in Georgia? The company is under investigation because of charges that it deceived investors by promising it would help them get FM radio licenses. Root usually made money whether the licenses came through or not, and attorney Greg Gio says that may be just the point.
He didn't appear to care whether his clients got the radio station or whether they didn't.
Communications lawyer Lauren Colby says Root had taken on far too many clients.
He had become extremely controversial, had gotten a reputation of missing deadlines, missing dates.
So what is the answer to the mystery of Thomas Root? Have the secrets of his strange flight been buried in the bottom of the ocean with his beloved plane?
And we do want to solve the mystery, Mr. Root. Welcome to you. First of all, we should ask how you feel.
Pretty good, thank you.
I want to go back to the moment when you blacked out in that plane. You think it was carbon monoxide?
No, that's been pretty conclusively disproven. It was not carbon monoxide. I, frankly, never did know what it was, and we don't know to this day what it was.
Let me ask you about the gunshot wound. The doctor says that there were powder burns indicating that it was fired at close range.
Well, my response would be that if you've ever seen the interior of a Cessna 210, you are at close range to any point within that airplane.
But you know, the Smith & Wesson people say that it's impossible, truly impossible, that the gun fired by itself.
Well, Smith & Wesson said that without knowing the model of the gun, the year of the gun, or what happened to the gun from the time it left the factory until the time I purchased it. My lawyers have looked into it, and we found, my lawyers have advised me, we found some pretty conclusive evidence that Smith & Wesson may not be correct in its statement.
I'm going to ask you what you know a lot of people think, that you tried to kill yourself.
Well, my first response to that is that over the years I've become a tolerable good shot, and if I ever would want to take my life, I could do better than a non-lethal stomach wound. But beyond that, I don't have it in me to kill myself. There's a will to live that everyone's got. I discovered in the water, in the 15 minutes I swam around waiting to be saved, that I had a will to live. I don't think it's unusual. I think everyone has it. But it was a will to live that was not going to let me drown until I had no more power to stay afloat.
Mr. Root, one of the reasons I suppose people say that you tried to kill yourself, is because you appear to be in bad financial trouble, and for the last few months at least, before this incident, had lots of problems.
Well, I am no more eager to talk about my personal financial affairs or my business financial affairs than I think you would be to talk about yours. I will tell you this, that everyone goes through life and has times when they have money and times when they don't have money. Having money probably beats not having money, but being alive beats either having money or not having money.
I'll agree to both points, but I suppose the reason the questions are asked is the state of mind. It bears on that. For instance, 2 days before you took the flight, as you know, you bounced a check. for $50,000. We have the check here.
Well, with all due respect, I'm not going to talk about any of my business affairs or personal financial affairs. I will tell you that financial affairs in good order or bad order, I think that people who take their lives or try to take their lives need help. Something has overridden their basic will to live. And I found out during the 15 minutes I swam around the water waiting and hoping that that airplane up there had seen me and that those swimmers were going to get to me. I knew without a doubt I had the will to live.
But you know you hadn't been shot before you got in the airplane.
You definitely hadn't been shot before I got in.
So it happened in the airplane.
That stands to reason. There's no other place it could have happened.
What about the police moving into your hangar, the ether, the guns? Have you ever been involved in drugs or drug sales, as they seem to have suspected?
Absolutely not. And the interest in what has been, what was found in the hangar has really obscured what wasn't found. There was no evidence, and there has never been any evidence of any drugs. But they were acting on a tip, they said. They were acting on a tip from someone at the airport, a mechanic, whom I had invited into my hangar to take my airplane out for service.
And that ether really was to clean the oil off the plane?
Absolutely. We have talked to more than one mechanic or other people involved in aviation. I had a client who volunteered to me that he cleaned his fiberglass bowl with it.
Do you use drugs yourself? Have you used drugs?
I have not. No, I have not.
Well, I think of all the Andy Warhol 15 minutes in history, this is one of the most baffling.
And it's sad, too. It is an interesting story to end the news with on one night or two nights, but life goes on. You have an accident in Sioux City with a lot of souls dead, raising serious air safety implications. It goes on the front page. It comes off the front page in a few days. I linger on, and there's no reason for it.
Planning any more plane trips soon?
Well, until we can figure out what caused the blackout, I would be foolish to fly. It would be a violation of federal air regulations, as well as just being plain dumb. Until I know what's wrong and can get a clean medical certificate, I'm afraid I'm on the ground.
Yeah, but you know, until I think there's so much interest in your flight, which was so dramatic, that until we find out who shot you or what shot you, it is going to linger on.
It probably is.
Tom Root, we thank you.
You're
We're
welcome.
glad you came in tonight. And when we come back, if you were president and you had a chance to order a strike against the people who took the hostages, would you do it? When we come back.
ABC News Primetime Live from New York will continue in a moment.
Some cereals turn into flavorless mush and milk. Crispix stays crispy. See? Crispix. But I suppose you want proof, so I'll let it sit here, and you come back after this commercial break. See ya.
Now, during the official Ford clearance, get low 2.9% financing or up to $1,000 cash bonus on Ford Ranger. Get 2.9 financing or $750 on Bronco 2. Plus, get up to $750 on select F-Series pickups. Combine the cash with option package discounts and save over $2,200 on Ranger, over $2,900 on Bronco 2, and over $3,200 on big pickups. Just some of the great values at your Ford dealer now during the official Ford clearance.
Hey there. I'm back. Okay, let's see if it's still crispy. Crunchy. That toasted crisp shape stays tasty. Well, now you know the facts. So, I guess you can take it from here. Crispix. Crisp that just won't quit.
I believe it's more to life than diets and gyms. The life that I lead keeps me healthy and trim. I believe in Crystal Light, 'cause I believe in me.
Crystal Light Diet Soft Drink Mix with NutraSweet. 6 very light, luscious, fruity flavors.
I like my life, I believe in myself. I believe in my family, my work, and my health. I believe in Crystal Light.
Very light, very luscious, very fruity.
'Cause I believe in me.
For more than 80 years, people have come home to homes with Anderson windows. Come home. And while times have changed, our commitment to quality and to the home has not. Which is why today, more people come home to Anderson windows than any other.
Come home to quality. Come home to Anderson.
Okay, who drew on the TV?
I don't know.
I'd know that scribbling anywhere. It's Joey's.
I just want people to know that starting Friday, Full House will be on a half hour earlier.
Well, that's just great, but now I've got to clean every TV in America.
Watch Full House at its new time, 8 o'clock, 7 Central and Mountain.
ABC News Primetime Live continues. Once again, Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson.
What we're seeing now is the faint light of dawn live over the old city of Jerusalem. A beautiful ancient city, but boy, in such a murderous part of the world. A world with the kind of strife and the warfare that is insoluble so far. This week, of course, we're outraged in this country, many Americans, by what's happened to our hostages there. William Higgins, his murder revealed this week. Whether it happened this week or not, we don't know. 8 other of our hostages still being held by kidnappers in Lebanon. And I think all Americans want to know, why don't we do something about it? I mean, why don't we get our hostages back? Why don't we strike them? Why don't we make them pay? But it is not really that simple, is it?
No, and because those were the questions we were asking here, too, we decided to call in a couple of military experts and ask them to spend the day devising a plan, their best plan of action to present to us if we were the president. We're going to let you be president when you hear this plan, make some decisions for yourself. But we thought before we did that, it might be good to bring you up to date on some of the things that have been happening today. Now, perhaps tonight on the Nightly News, you saw the tape of Joseph Scipio, who has been held hostage now for 3 years. When we watched this tape tonight, I think a lot of us wondered what someone else who was watching it was thinking. His name is Charles Glass, an ABC correspondent who was held hostage for 2 months and who is going to join us here tonight. Charles, tell me, when you watched that tape, what did you remember about the kind of things that went on in the room when you were forced to make a tape as a hostage?
Well, what I recall most of all is the feeling that one has that he's in the dark, both literally and figuratively. You're in the dark because you're in a dark room and you're blindfolded, but you're also kept in the dark as far as information goes. And suddenly into this darkness, 3 men come into the room, you're blindfolded, they hand you a statement, which they tell you to read. And you read it, you say, I don't want to read this. And they say, if you don't, we'll kill you. And so in my case, they made me sit in front of a camera, a little mini camera, which they set up on top of a rollaway bed. And I had to put my head down on the table like this, and then I could put it up. And then when I put my head up without my blindfold, their faces are covered. I don't know why I'm reading the statement. I have no idea what's going on in the outside world, and I have no choice in what I have to say.
Did they coach you on it? Did they say more emphasis here, more conviction there?
Very often they did. They said, could you do it again? Would you do it again? In fact, the night they came in very late at night, woke me up to do it. We did it about 20 times. Not only because they didn't like the way I was doing it, but also because they had problems with their equipment. They don't know how to use it. And in the event, they came back again early the next morning, and we did it 4 or 5 more times. I think those were the ones they must have sent out.
Did you have the sense at that time your life was more in danger than it had been before?
No. There was a gun pointed to my head, and I knew if I read the statement, even though I didn't want to read it, that they probably wouldn't kill me and that they were keeping me alive for a reason.
Charles, I want you to stay there, stand by with us. We'll come back to you.
You know, Joseph Scipio, another one of our hostages in Lebanon, had his life threatened. They were going to kill him. Today, his kidnappers announced they would suspend that death threat, Diane, but not for long. They made demands on the state of Israel, saying that Israel must turn over certain Lebanese and Shiite Lebanese and Palestinian guerrillas that Israel is holding. I want to go now to our chief correspondent who is in Israel, Chris Wallace. Chris, you're there in Jerusalem. Tell us, how are the Israelis reacting to these new demands?
Sam, the Israeli officials worked through the night here in Jerusalem studying this latest demand by Hezbollah. They say that they're interested that if it is an offer of a genuine swap, all the prisoners here in Israel for all the hostages being held in Lebanon, then they are willing to negotiate. On the other hand, if it's simply being asked to cave into terrorist demands, they say they have no interest. We happened to be interviewing the foreign minister, Moshe Aarons, earlier when the Scipio tape came in with the deadline threat. He dismissed it without missing a beat and said, if we crack now, they'll just kill more people.
Chris, as you know, the whole series of events of the last several days began last Friday when the Israelis kidnapped Sheikh Obeid, a Shiite Muslim religious leader from Lebanon. What are they learning from Sheikh Obeid?
Well, Sam, they say they are getting some information, but more than that, they hope that they now finally have some leverage in their effort to get back 3 Israeli soldiers who are being held in Lebanon. It's interesting. Last December, they abducted another Lebanese Hezbollah member, and no one in Lebanon seemed to care. They've been stuck with the guy for the last 6 months. Their hope is, they realize that it has created much more of a firestorm than they ever expected, but they feel that in this cruel game that's being played in the Middle East, at least now they may finally have an important bargaining chip.
And is there much talk about the fact that they feel the U.S. should do more?
Absolutely, Diane. They say that they feel the U.S. must take risks, must be willing to risk losing lives. We talked at one point yesterday with Ezer Weizman, the former defense minister, now the science minister. He was quite bitter. He said that if he were an American serviceman now, he would be afraid to go out on a dangerous mission because he would have no confidence that the U.S. would come to rescue him. He said that in its current role in the Mideast, the U.S. is a toothless tiger.
Thanks, Chris. Chris Wallace, our chief correspondent in Jerusalem. We'll come home. We're going to send you someplace else next week. Now, that's the state of play on the ground in Israel. Let's find out about U.S. policy. Let's go to the State Department now, where Secretary of State James Baker is standing by live. Thanks for coming in this evening, Mr. Secretary.
You're welcome, Sam.
Mr. Secretary, Chris Wallace reports that the Israelis think we are, to put it in the word, wimps about this, that our policy isn't tough enough.
Well, you know, we have a different policy, Sam, than Israel does. We don't believe that you can negotiate with terrorists. Israel is located there in the region. They do negotiate. They grab people and they make trades and make swaps. It's something that they're a lot better positioned to do than the United States. We are concerned that if we get into the business of negotiating with terrorists or swapping, trying to trade with terrorists, we'll just have a lot more Americans grabbed all around the world. So we have a different policy approach. We understand and appreciate their policy approach, and I think the government of Israel understands and appreciates our policy approach.
We don't mind, Mr. Secretary, if Israel does arrange a swap with the kidnappers.
We really don't take a position on it, Sam. We can't, because to take a position that we encourage them to do it, of course, would violate our policy. To take a position that they shouldn't do it would violate their policy, or at least it would be our saying, no, you can't pursue your own policy. They are a sovereign state. So we basically say we don't concur in it, nor do we object to it.
Let me ask you to take a position. The New York Times is reporting tomorrow that if Joseph Scipio had in fact been killed today, which of course, thank goodness he wasn't, that President Bush was prepared to bomb Baalbek, one of the terrorist centers in the Bekaa Valley. Is that correct?
Well, that's, of course, very, very hypothetical and very speculative. Let me simply say that in this business, it would be wrong to foreclose options, but it's equally wrong, I think, to speculate about options, particularly under hypothetical situations.
Since you've been in office, Mr. Secretary, have you seen anything like a practicable, a sensible, possible plan to rescue the hostages? Have you seen anything that you think even comes close?
It's a very difficult situation that we're faced with hostages in that particular area of the Middle East. You know, the United States struck back with vigor against terrorism in the case of Libya, when we had a situation not long ago where we knew Libya had engaged in a state-sponsored terrorist act against American servicemen. We bombed Tripoli. There was no hesitation. We went right in there and did it. The situation is different here. We have 8 American lives at stake at the very least, because we have 8 other hostages there. We have a different situation with respect to targets. So it's nowhere near as easy to resolve as a situation where you have state-sponsored terrorism.
Well, Mr. Secretary, let me just put it the way it's usually put in these cases. Are you saying the lives of these 8 Americans are really more important than any other consideration of foreign policy for the United States?
I'm not saying that, Sam, but I'm saying that the lives of these 8 Americans are very important to us, and I think that the lives of these 8 Americans should be very important to us.
But the Israelis say that the way to teach terrorists a lesson is to teach them that there is a cost.
Well, there's something to be said for that, and that's what we did in the case of Libya. If there were as equally an effective way to do that, under the current circumstances of these people that are held in different places by small groups in locations that don't offer the same kind of targeting opportunities and so forth, we could follow that policy approach. That is not the situation on the ground with respect to our hostages in Lebanon.
Thank you very much, Secretary Baker. We appreciate your coming in tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we told you at the outset that you would get a chance to consider what it would be if you were president and you had to make a decision. So we'll now let you see the plan of military action that our two experts came up with. We put them together, locked them in a room for hours today. They are Admiral Stansfield Turner, former head of the CIA, and Noel Cook, who is a former Pentagon expert on counterterrorism. And this is the plan that they thought would be the best for the president to see.
Well, the president has asked us to come up with a rescue plan and a backup retaliatory plan. But we're recognizing when we do that, one of our assumptions is going to be that we're going to be able to get enough intelligence to pull it off.
Sure, we may lose some of the hostages if we can't get them all at once.
I think we agree there's no question about that.
Well, if we're going to do it, we've got the Navy amphibious ships off the coast here on which we could base the rescue force. And they could go by small rubber boat at night right into the beaches on the edge of the city of Beirut and make their initial landing there and then start to work their way in. Shall we look at the Beirut map and see how that'll go?
So we get in there, SEAL Team 6 is going to provide the elements that will be deployed, 5 men for each expected hostage.
5 men who would storm inside the building. They'd probably have to break down the door and rush in and try to get to that hostage before anybody did harm to the hostage, knowing that a rescue force was coming. Then I think you'd want about 3 people to stay outside the building and be sure that they weren't sandbagged from behind.
Depending on how tight the region is that they're operating in, we may not need that much for backup, but again, we're going to have to rely on the initial scouts in there to give us a better fix on that.
I'd like to see a couple of Army Little Bird helicopters with lots of gunfire in there that would be overhead in case those troops got hemmed in, and bring in the rescue helicopter if it was going to do the extraction or whether the hostages were led back to the beach from which they would be extracted by helicopter.
If we can get the timing down, and I think we can, it's not an unusual operation for our people. It'll all key on the intelligence, which I have absolutely no confidence in, I must say at the beginning. But if we can get that, if we can pinpoint this, at least we can give him a fair prospect of bringing some people home.
We have to have for the president an option for retaliation, that is an attack on the suspected terrorists themselves. He could use that instead of a rescue operation. He could use it in addition to a rescue operation. And I think here you've got the Navy carrier Coral Sea, which is in the eastern Mediterranean, and with A-6 bombers, which are night and day capable, and you could load them up and have selected your targets in advance.
I don't know. I think we're going to find, because we have in the past, every time we've tried to run one of these things, that there's such a paucity of targets for retaliation in this area. If you get into southern Lebanon, it's all beat to hell. In the city, again, it's wrecked. The prospect of tremendous collateral damage to innocent people is one that the president may not want to sustain.
I think, though, the reason to do this planning for the president at this stage is he's got to have an emergency plan in case they do keep killing hostages on a regular basis. If that goes on, it seems to me it will be intolerable to the American public if we don't do something. And maybe then we're unfortunately down to a smaller number of hostages and this becomes somewhat more feasible, even though under any circumstance it's a very risky operation.
Let's turn now to those experts. Let me ask you, Noel Cook, under your best plan, the best one you could devise, how many of the hostages do you think you could get out?
Well, we began with an assumption, two assumptions. First, that we would be able to find some hostages in Beirut proper that would justify an operation. The second assumption was that the president would be willing to sacrifice the remaining hostages, those that may be held in southern Lebanon and those that may be held in the Bekaa Valley. And I think that's a very important assumption, because it conveys to you our feeling that there really are no options for a rescue attempt in that region.
You too, Admiral Turner, no options for rescue.
no options that don't have a high risk of losing at least as many hostages and probably as many servicemen in the process as you might save. Yes, you can probably get 1 or 2 out, but it's going to be costly.
Okay, let's ask Charles Glass. Charlie, you were a hostage. What do you think? Rescue plan work?
I think it would have been possible in my case, it's the only one I really know intimately, to have rescued me. I usually had only 2 guards. Had the apartment I was in, or any one of the 5 locations I was in, been observed closely, so that it was known when the guards were coming and going, when they were rotated. There were times, say, when one guard went out to buy food, when the other guard would be there on his own, when you could do it very quickly without much risk to that hostage life. However,
Charlie, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, they'd have to get in that room before that guard heard them coming, or else.
Well, except that he's usually in his own room, and my room was locked. It takes about a minute for him to get from his room to my room. Now, but that still leaves open 2 questions. One, what would happen to the other hostages in all the other locations if I were taken suddenly in a rescue? And I should say that whenever I was interrogated, they always interrogated me, asking me, what do you know about the possibility of a U.S. rescue attempt for the other hostages? Of course, I knew nothing. The second thing that it raises in my mind is, why isn't our intelligence better? It was said in this thing now, that the intelligence support isn't good enough. Why isn't the intelligence support activity up to it?
Charlie, I imagine a lot of people are asking that question. We have people tonight who want to discuss this. All right, sir, you've heard the contingency. What do you think, as president, you would do?
Before I answer that, I'd like to say that I think one of the ironies is this very week, when we've been going through this agony over the hostages, is the week that the Congress is about to pass a $305 billion.
That is correct, but I really wish that we could keep it on the subject.
Right.
We have asked you as president to decide whether you would try to rescue these hostages or not.
No, I tried to do something different.
What would you try to do?
I'd extract not the hostages, but the leaders of Hezbollah.
If we could
that will be a lot easier to do than pulling the hostages out of the apartments in Beirut or other cities, and then precisely trade for the hostages.
All right, what about that, Admiral Turner?
Hostages wouldn't be alive very long, Sam, if you went and captured the leaders of Hezbollah.
Well, now the Israelis have captured Sheikh Obeid.
And we lost Colonel Higgins right away.
When do we think we lost Colonel Higgins? There is some belief that he may have been killed months ago, and they seized this opportunity to just reveal the murder. Noel Cook?
We have no idea at this point, or Admiral Turner and I have no idea when that went to take place.
Once again, it's a question of intelligence. All right, sir, you want to tell us what you would do.
I would like to say that this discussion cannot be had in a vacuum, and it's essential to bear in mind the fundamental role that the United States is playing globally in the Middle East in bringing about the peaceful resolution of the ongoing conflict.
But if we talk about the fundamental role at this point, with 8 Americans still there, we'll discuss something that is not germane to whether we can save them or punish the people that hold them. Well, you're right, the Middle East situation is so complex. We'll spend all night, we could go into Ted Koppel's time. I wish you'd just simply tell us whether you think that as president, you would either try to extract the hostages using the Turner-Cook plan, punish the kidnappers, or do nothing.
I think I would bear in mind the fact that my decision will be tied to other things I'm trying to achieve in the Middle East, and most fundamentally to the desire to advocate peaceful discussions between Israelis and Palestinians.
So which bearing would say what to your plan?
It seems to me the use of violence would run counter to the position advocated so ardently by the United States to put an end to violence among the 2 parties and to seek about the opening of a dialogue.
I'm just curious. You have a point. I'm just curious whether there's anyone in our audience tonight who just says it's awful about the hostages, but they are in effect citizens whose lives are part of the country's fabric, and we're just simply going to have to go ahead and bomb the kidnappers and teach them a lesson. Is there anyone willing to do that? Willing in the sense that you think that's the best plan? Yes.
Yes. I'd like to, if I'm the President of the United States right now, my option will be, and my avenue will be, I will ask entire world religions to get involved, get our hostage. And America, one of the greatest nations in the world, why we are being targeted everywhere in the world. I will ask the citizen of the United States and ask your question yourself. $5.5 billion a year given aid, and we feed entire world. And why we are in target?
You'd ask that question, but would you use force now or not?
No, sir. I will not use the force. I will ask the religious leaders all over the world to get involved, get our hostage.
It's a good plan. Is there anyone here who would use force? Yes, sir.
I think it would be important for us to say that these hostages may in fact be lost. I would certainly use force in a tactical sense if that was possible.
What would you say to the families of the hostages as president if you had to make that decision?
Well, I think we have to look more long-term and say, in the beginning, this is certainly going to be a hard course to take. However, I think for the long term, it would be important for us to take that action.
You could say that, but I must tell you, sir, I was there one day, not in the room, when Ronald Reagan went into a room several years ago and met the families of hostages. And it so moved him, we are all told, that many people believe it was right there that he decided to sign on to an arms for hostages plan and take that, because it's easier said than done to look at people whose loved ones are over in Lebanon. I want to thank every one of you, though, for being with us tonight and for giving us your views. And ladies and gentlemen out there, what would you do if you were president? More in a moment.
From New York, ABC News Primetime Live will continue in a moment.
For Isuzu's 75th birthday, I baked this cake all by myself. But before we blow out the candles, let's make a wish. Wish for help with your down payment on a Trooper? Wish you could afford a loaded pickup? How about lower payments on an Impulse? Well, thanks to factory incentives of up to $2,500, your wish could come true. So hurry, while the cake's still warm.
Factory-to-dealer incentives could save you up to $2,500 during Isuzu's 75th birthday blowout.
Attention shredded wheat eaters, you've been missing something. Taste, but no more. Kellogg's Squares brings you that superlative shredded wheat nutrition with no salt, no fat, no cholesterol. But wait, Kellogg's Squares gives you free in every bite. Taste. Sweet, delectable fruit in the middle. You might never eat plain old shredded wheat again. Kellogg's Squares, shredded wheat with taste, free in every bite. And speaking of taste, now Squares have 35% more raisin. Great taste, free.
Friday, the world's largest hazardous waste recycler. It may be progress, but some think it's a major health threat. Tom Jarrell investigates. Plus, sibling rivalry. John Stossel shows why fighting may actually be good for your kids. And Woodstock 20 years later. Lynn Shure searches for some of the faces in the crowd. Watch 2020 Friday.
When ABC News Primetime Live continues, Roseanne Barr turns the questions on us.
Blame me! Why not? It's your fault! There, I feel better now.
And why did Harry and Sally have such a hard time just being friends? The woman who created them explains. I can't remember her name.
What do you mean? I can remember. Amanda, right? Amanda Rice. Reese, right. That's what I said. Whatever happened to her?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
From Channel 6, this is an Action News Brief with Jim Gardner.
Good evening. Norristown's Joseph Scipio has been spared once again by his captors. The group holding him in the Mideast released his videotape today. We'll have that story at 11. A quiet suburb of Wilmington rocked by violence as two people are gunned down in their home. Dan Quayle reports on a woman who finally has a new house after moving out of her sinking home in Logan. And we'll tell you why a fireworks display had a deadly finale in Japan at 11 o'clock tonight.
My king all dressed in red. Aiko, I know. But your $5 can use it. Check him up in our net. Talking about Aiko, I know. Check him up in our net. Check him up in our net.
There are 100 reasons to own a Mercedes-Benz. For John and me, it keeps coming down to just two.
Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes star after Nightline.
From TV1 in New York, Primetime Live continues. Once again, Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson.
You know, a lot of people have the idea that being president is easy or would be at least a lot of fun. In Ronald Reagan's case, he often made it look easy. He was so good at all of those things in the Rose Garden. But when they have to make decisions, presidents, like the one we've been talking about tonight, I'm reminded of what John Kennedy said during the Cuban Missile Crisis. You'll remember he was there with his advisors, and when it was finally all over and Khrushchev had backed down, he said, "We earned our pay this week."
Well, when an individual's safety comes into conflict with the national interest, it's the loneliest moment in any presidency. But you know, the interesting thing to me is that the frustration still remains, even if we accept logically that none of these plans works very well. You come back to the same frustration because they don't work because of intelligence, because we don't have good intelligence. I still don't understand. I'm not convinced that there's not a way to get in.
Charlie Glass said, why can't we have better intelligence and know where people are? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll tell you one thing. I think presidents are well advised. Yes, Ronald Reagan hit Tripoli. That was another situation. When they take the lives of Americans into consideration, and when, as President Bush appears to be doing in this crisis, instead of saying, well, let's just bomb them back to the Stone Age, forgive me, Curtis LeMay, but that's wrong. The right thing to do is say, Americans' lives first in this situation, even though it's frustrating.
Well, you know, Ted Koppel and Nightline are going to take this to the next step because they're going to consider still additional options for the president tonight. Ted?
Well, Diane, and we've been listening to Sam and going to take him up at his suggestion and slop over into our time period, picking up essentially where you and Sam left off. Every option confronting President Bush has its up and its downside, and we have gathered 6 top national security specialists here. They will be joining me live at 11:30. They'll be headed up by Henry Kissinger to examine what the president can and should do. That will be on Nightline at 11:30 Eastern Time. Now, I plan to settle back and watch you and Sam at work.
And, Ted, we're going to watch you tonight. I must tell everyone at home and here in our studio that if you saw the tease at the top of our broadcast where we said tonight, this, that, and the other, we promised you we'd show something about the richest man in the world, or one of them, and how there was a bracelet and a manacle. We don't have any time. We've talked so long on other subjects that we can't do it. We may do it next week. But coming up next, we're going to have 2 fabulous people, Diane and Roseanne, in a moment.
Primetime Live will continue in a moment.
Lens crafters took exactly an hour in preparing my glasses.
Lens crafters craft your quality glasses in about an hour by putting the whole lab right in the store so you can see better, faster, in about an hour.
Lens crafters. Check your yellow pages or call 1-800-522-LENS.
Most car accidents happen in a showroom. People buy the wrong car. They want a car as quick as a Saab, as roomy as a Saab, as safe as a Saab, as reasonably priced as a Saab. But they don't test drive a Saab. Don't buy the wrong car. Visit your Saab dealer for a test drive. It's fun, it's free, and there's no risk involved. Right now, you can lease a fully equipped Saab 900 for only $235 a month.
Gals from the Garden Club order chicken salad, no mayo. Yuck, I say. Cholesterol, they say. I give them New Kraft cholesterol free. They sent me this.
New Kraft. Great taste. No cholesterol.
Made up my mind. I'm going to do it. Why shouldn't I? I'm the one who has to look at myself in the mirror every morning. So before I lose another hair, I'm going to the doctor. I know doctors have treatment programs that are proven to work. More guys are trying them every day. I'm not bad now, but I wouldn't mind looking better.
Your doctor can really do something about hair loss. So see your doctor, or call this toll-free number.
just communicate better than others, which is why Harris 3M is now Lanier, the company to call for copiers, facsimile, and voice products worldwide.
Hi, I'm back here. This is Marco Tellani, and I don't have much time, so I got to talk fast.
Okay, relax, relax.
But Gordon...
Starting Friday, Perfect Strangers will be on a whole hour later.
That's what I'm trying to tell them, but we only got 5 seconds left.
5 seconds? What? Perfect Strangers Friday, and it's new time, 9 o'clock.
8 Central Mountain.
The NFL is back. The preseason kicks off when the Washington Redskins meet Jim Kelly's Buffalo Bills in the AFC-NFC Hall of Fame game live. Then it's same-day coverage as the world's top drivers compete in the International Race of Champions, all Saturday on ABC Sports.
Primetime Live from TV1 in New York continues. Once again, Diane Sawyer.
From time to time on the broadcast, we want to go visit people in their homes. Tonight, a television home I think you'll recognize, because this Monday, we picked up the New York Times, opened to the opinion page, and there, amid all of the experts on the Middle East and what else, was a byline we recognize, a voice in the column we couldn't mistake, and we think that you'll recognize it too.
Mom, do you think boobs will affect my pitching?
Not this season.
You know her as the funniest wife and mother in America. Her withering wisecracks have made the sitcom Roseanne a runaway success.
I just spent 2 hours in a supermarket with one of them carts that only makes left-hand turns.
You also know her from the magazines and supermarket tabloids, where she's right up there in the permanent spotlight with UFOs and Elvis. That's why she had a column in the New York Times this week announcing she is piqued and overly critiqued. She said in all this copy she's been used as a symbol for everything, from motherhood to fat people to angry women in the workplace. In fact, she says she stood for so many things this year, she needs to sit down and catch her breath.
There, I feel better now.
And here tonight, live from the set of where Roseanne Connor lives, Roseanne Barr joins us, and we thank you for that. Now, I have to ask you, were you in a smoldering mood when you wrote this column?
Well, I was in a writing mood.
A writing mood? Yeah. Is there a mood you go into?
Yeah, because I have a lot of women that live inside me, probably 13 to 15 women, and one of them's a writing woman, and she, you know, I have to do a lot of work to get her to come. But I woke up and she was there, so I ran out to my kitchen table and I wrote it in about 5 minutes.
Well, here's what the writing lady had to say, that you have stood up and stood for ordinary guys, little guys, fat people, just about everywhere. What do you mean?
What do I mean? Well, I'm just talking about what I read in the news and the press, you know, not just the tabloids, but, you know, all the, quote, legitimate press, too. But yeah, I think that I just stood for a little bit too much. I was, you know, like, I sort of became a symbol this year, and I kind of prefer being a human being.
Well, you know, I can hear a lot of people saying I should have her problem, right? She's writing an Emancipation Proclamation for celebrity, and isn't this the life you chose?
Yeah.
So you have a right to complain?
I think I do, yeah.
But
I think I have the right to complain, no matter if I was the richest, thinnest, most popular woman on earth. I would always reserve the right to complain. So I'm not happy unless I do.
One of the things you wrote was that you had also stood for, at one point, megalomaniacal women who were impossible on the set. Are you saying...
I stood for the many women who've become megalomaniacal dictators.
Dictators, that's right. Yeah. Dictators on the set. All of this stuff you're saying is just phony and false, and they ought to leave you alone?
Well, I don't think that they should leave me alone, because if they leave me alone, you know, I'd have to go back to Burger King, and I don't think that I'm ready to do that. I just think that it's funny when you kind of provoke all these different ideas about, I think that you get people to talk about themselves, and I just am kind of reminding people, I think, that they are talking about themselves. And maybe something about me or other people in show business reminds me of that and is a catalyst for them. But when they write, whatever they write, you're only writing about yourself. And I know that as a writer.
I know that this was a spirited protest on your part, but there's one part of it that's not a laughing matter. I remember reading the stories when a magazine obtained sealed records about a daughter you had placed for adoption. How did you learn about it?
I learned about it when they came to my hotel at 11 at night and knocked on the door and came in and told me that they had the adoption records, and I was very shocked and very frightened, and I felt very violated. And
did you try to talk them out of it?
Yes, I did. I got down on the floor and begged them to not do it. And
what did they say?
They said that they couldn't guarantee anything. But I didn't want my children hurt. I don't want my children in the press. I don't want anybody to talk about any of my children, and so that was very hard. And, you know, I have like a real glamorous life and all that kind of crap. I have a lot of money and stuff like that, but I just, I'm also a human being and a mother, and I wasn't very happy about that.
Could you have sued? Those were sealed documents.
Yeah. I don't think I could have sued. I don't know.
So what's the answer? You're saying that press have got to police themselves and at least...
I think that they do police themselves, and that's not for me to say or anything like that, but maybe some ethics. I don't know.
Do you think lines have got to be drawn with children?
Well, I would prefer that they were drawn with my children.
If you went back and had to make a decision to do all of this all over again, would you?
Yeah.
No question?
Well, you know, at least I don't have master charge on my rear end anymore, so. Yeah, I guess you give up stuff to get stuff, but I don't know. I think I would have done it again because I like what I do. And, yeah, I really like what I do.
All right. It strikes me that the column in the New York Times was just the sort of thing Roseanne Connor would have done.
You think so?
I expect so, or if not, just one of the 15 people who live inside you. I'm sure so. We thank you for joining us tonight.
Very much, Diane.
And it's nice to know that MasterCard is a consolation for something. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Coming up on Primetime Live, the woman who wrote one of this summer's hit movies, When Harry Met Sally, talks about why men lust after women.
It might have something to do with you.
They almost can't help themselves, like salmon. It's what my children say. It's instinctive, Mom.
Have you driven a Ford?
Now, during the official Ford clearance, get low 2.9% financing or $1,000 cash bonus on Ford Escort and Ford Tempo. Plus, get 2.9% financing or a $1,500 cash bonus on Thunderbird. Combine the cash bonus with option package discounts and save over $1,700 on Escort, $2,000 on Tempo, and get over $2,400 in total value on Thunderbird. Just some of the great values at your Ford dealer now during the official Ford clearance.
Everybody knows the pain reliever hospitals use most isn't an aspirin or ibuprofen brand. It's Tylenol. But that's not the whole story. Tylenol is also recommended most for everyday pain by internists, family practitioners, general surgeons, obstetricians, gastroenterologists, pharmacists, and on and on. Tylenol, recommended the most by the people who know the most.
Norman, what's that?
Nothing, honey.
That's just a simple question. Norman, are you eating something?
It's nothing, honey.
He lies like a dog.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch. Crisp golden flakes glazed with sweet honey and real roasted peanuts.
Irene, what's that you're playing?
Nothing, honey.
Two can play this little game.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch.
Tomorrow, updates on the hostage crisis and the conclusion of our parenting series with the father of three, Kenny Rogers. Also, Wynton Marsalis on Good Morning America tomorrow.
A brief profile of the foremost television journalists in the world today. ABC News. We're changing the face of television news.
From TV1 in New York, this is ABC News Primetime Live. Once again, Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson.
And a final reflection on the weeks gone by. A lot of people have been asking a question we've heard at lunches and dinners, and the question is this: can men and women really be just friends? They're asking it because of a sleeper hit movie this summer called When Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner. So we thought it might be interesting to go back and find the woman who wrote the screenplay for that movie and see what she thought, what premise she was proceeding on when she wrote that movie. So we will visit with her, Nora Ephron, in a moment. But first, let's let the movie ask the question again.
Men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
That's not true. I have a number of men friends and there is no sex involved.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You only think you do.
You're saying I'm having sex with these men without my knowledge?
No, what I'm saying is they all want to have sex with you.
They do not.
Do too.
They do not.
Do too.
How do you know?
Because no man can be friends with a woman that he finds attractive. He always wants to have sex with her.
So you're saying that a man can be friends with a woman he finds unattractive?
No, you pretty much want to nail him too.
I think one of the things we realized, at least that I realized, is that men don't really want to be friends with women. They've already got friends. They've got men friends that they can talk to about all the important things like baseball statistics and things like that. Women, on the other hand, want to be friends with men because they think maybe if they are friends with men, they will understand them. Men are not particularly interested in understanding women, I think. Women think, if I could just understand them, then maybe it wouldn't be so hard.
You really think men are basically stalking one way or the other?
Well, yes, especially when they're young. There's no question of it. They almost can't help themselves. It's like salmon. It's what my children say. It's instinctive, Mom.
Hit it, Sam. An entire gender is counting on your reply.
Well, I've got to tell you, I wonder whether Nora Ephron is the right person after her experience with Carl Bernstein. I mean, is she really the right one to talk about can men and women be friends?
Well, I have to tell you something. I think she's right.
What? We can't?
I think single men and women probably can't be just friends in the sense that women and women can and men can. It's
Unless
very
they're
difficult.
totally unattractive.
No, it's very difficult to have a mutual, balanced, as you say in the arms reduction business, detachment about each other. Somebody's always yearning or wishing.
Well, you know, that's the way the good Lord made it. But I think I do agree that men often can have very deeper friendships because they have the kind of bonding, whether it's on the battlefield or on the sports diamond, you know. George Will is out there with some pal of his watching the Baltimore Orioles. Or, yes, her view is that we run in packs. You know, maybe it's sometimes in our lives, but later on we get a little smarter or tighter or something.
Well, I guess you speak from experience. I wouldn't know. All right.
Well, I speak from observation, too.
We should tell you that we want you to be sure and watch 2020 tomorrow night. It helps us to remember that 2020 and Nightline both had first nights, too.
Yes, and remember that on September 7th, we're going to have a real big show.
That's right.
It's at the White House. President and Mrs. Bush have been nice enough to allow us to come down to the White House and see the family quarters.
And so, I'm Diane Sawyer.
And I'm Sam Donaldson. See you next week for another edition of Primetime Live.
From New York, this has been Primetime Live. For transcripts, send $4 to Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, 10007.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.
Hello, I'm Jim Gardner for Action News. The terrorists holding Norristown native Joseph Sicipio release a videotape plea from their hostage. David Henry is live at the Sicipio home in Norristown, where a tense four-day drama may be ready to take a breather. A double murder has left a Wilmington suburb in a state of shock.
I'm Dan Quaid. After a long struggle, a Philadelphia woman is relocated from her sinking Logan home to this house in Olney with a little help from the city and the state.
Those stories, the Crime Fighters Report, and AccuWeather next on Action News tonight.
Most airline mergers happen when a healthy airline buys an airline in trouble. And why is U.S. Air merging with Piedmont? An airline with a very healthy balance sheet. An airline with a wonderful reputation for courteous people, dependable service, and excellent schedules to over 120 cities. Why did U.S. Air pursue Piedmont? Because we are an airline in pursuit of excellence.
Over the past decade, all other lines of cars have led Mercedes-Benz in one crucial category: depreciation. Which proves that sometimes great cars finish last. Mercedes-Benz, the resale legend.